Hey everyone, hope your Sunday's going well. All right, so I told you I was going to get through the Old Testament and then get to the New Testament, but unfortunately, I could not get all the way through the Old Testament. I did make it through to Jeremiah, and then at that point, I just couldn't go any further. I had been striking through things I agree with, things I don't. Like I'd been just striking through it over and over and over, and it was the same thing over and over. It's a lot of violence and greed and things like that. Things I've spoken on before, and it wasn't getting any better. It was basically the same thing. You'll have people rehashing what other people have said, other suspected authors of other books as part of the anthology. So I just couldn't take it anymore. It was the same thing over and over. It felt very redundant. I didn't feel like I was getting anything out of it aside from the good pieces, which I'd already gathered anyway from previous books. So I had to stop there at Jeremiah. I just fast forward through to the New Testament. So I'm thinking, okay, I got the New Testament here. This is going to be good. This is going to be amazing. Like, I'll agree with every single thing in here. And even though I've read it before, like I said, my mind's kind of like waking up. So I wanted to read it again, as you study the word, right? So I wanted to read it again and make sure I'm in agreement with everything in here, which pretty much knew wasn't going to happen, but I thought I would be closer than I am. And just one thing off the bat. So, like I said, the Old Testament, I've already told you how I feel about that. There's some few good things in there, right? The Ten Commandments are nice. There's other, principles in there and virtues that I think are admirable and should be incorporated into daily life. But there's a whole lot of terrible in there because of the time frame and just how vicious people were back then. And even now, like if you look at the world, like we still, blow up children every day. So, some things never change in certain regions with people in power because they think like the Old Testament. In their minds, they're still warring tribes. We haven't really progressed on from there for some folks. But in the New Testament, even Jesus references back constantly. Oh, I'm doing this to fulfill the prophecy of Isaiah or whomever, or Daniel or whomever, right? He keeps mentioning like a few times, just going through Matthew. I've only made it through Matthew so far. So I'm just getting into it, which is one of the bigger books from the Gospels. So got through Matthew, and even then he's referencing, this is to fulfill the prophecy. Like Jesus, if I could go back and slap him and say, look, I know you call yourself the Son of God, but in reality, it's just part of the Trinity. And you're just the human incarnation of God. So you call it the Father and your Son. I get it. I understand it. But in reality, that's what it is. It's the incarnation of God. Not to be confused with, the all-knowing, all-powerful, the everything God. That's different. And that presence, we don't get to be in contact with directly until we, finally make it home. But like, if I could just talk to him and say, look, why are you bothering? Because clearly it's called the New Testament for a reason, right? They snatched you up and killed you for a reason because they were terrified of you, because of things that you were doing, and you were changing the public discourse, and you were counteracting the law, which they were, so adamant about. They were all about like policies and procedures and these things you had to do, and these eating rituals and things like that. Rituals, basically. They were big into the rituals. And he was coming, which they thought was blasphemous, right? He's saying he's the Son of God, which is probably the incarnation of God. But they couldn't accept it. And he made the mistake of trying to back into the Old Testament. He was trying to like take this product which he didn't agree with. He liked some things, right? He quoted from it, and they speak of it, and especially, throughout the New Testament, they're going to reference back to it again. But that's my problem. I don't agree with the Old Testament. You can cherry pick a few things out of it, like most pastors do every Sunday and Wednesday whenever they preach. They go in there and they pick out the things they like. But if the congregation could say, no, 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 I want you to preach on this, and we could just put up any verse of the Bible, the whole anthology, any verse up there we wanted, and you'd have to preach on it, you'd find it very difficult because that book is impossible. Like, you can't stand that book up and say that everything in here is absolutely true and that's the Word of God. You can't, because there are some horrible things in there. And I'm just in the New Testament, so we'll go through just a few examples that I happen to see on these pages that I wanted to talk about, and they just happen to be on the same page. I mean, I could go through the whole book, but we'd be here all day. But unfortunately, like, it seems like Jesus was trying to tie back in that. And during that time period, I guess he had to, right? Because everyone believed the Old Testament or whatever books they happen to have access to. So he was trying to like bring the New Testament, but try to like shoehorn it in with the Old Testament, which he was replacing anyway, the whole animal sacrifice and all that stuff. So he tried to just cobble it together, but it gets too muddy like that. If you try to do that, it gets too muddy, and you're going to be like, you're trying to give them the truth, but then you're trying to like make it seem like it kind of agrees with the lies that they were telling, and that's just not a good fit. It's not a good fit at all. He'd have been better off saying, "Hey, I'm Jesus. I'm the incarnation of God, Son of God," whatever term he chose to use, right? Not the Father or the all-knowing, all-powerful God, but the human incarnation, one you can relate to. And he should have said, "Hey, I don't care what all your prophets said. All those people that said they were speaking for God, they had a dream, God told them something in a dream, whatever interpretation, burning bushes, whatever encounter they think they had with God, that's totally different from someone saying they are the Son of God. They are the incarnation of God." So the incarnation of God, which was Jesus, that's what we assume, right, from all the miracles and everything else. Okay, and if that's the case, and he came here to counteract the law, which I understand because it was terrible, but he should have just gone all in and said, "Look, I don't really care, what your prophets said. They think they heard from God, because I've read the Old Testament, and some of those things they think they heard from God are absolutely untrue. God isn't a God of genocide and murder and spoils and rape and theft and all this. No, absolutely not. And setting things on fire. That's not the God that I know. The God." So he should have just said, "Look, I'm going to give you the word of God from his mouth." And he's working with God, right? The Trinity. So he's working with God. He's speaking for God. He would have been better off doing that than trying to cobble it in with the Old Testament, in my opinion. And I'm not going to make the same mistake that I in my opinion, that he made. All right, he came to replace the law. I know he says otherwise here, but clearly it's called a New Testament for a reason. So if the law was all you needed to know, there wouldn't be a New Testament. You would just have the Old Testament. You would never get the New Testament. So clearly things change. And in my opinion, he did a lot of great things, obviously. But as far as like material, could I use that book and say that I agree with everything in there? Oh, no. No, not at all. Even the New Testament, like I said, I just got through Matthew, and I still have 2 pins. I can't get down to 1 pin where it's like I agree with everything. It's still 2 pins. So we'll just go through a few of these examples. But in my opinion, like he references a few times, like, I'm doing this to fulfill a prophecy, or this is, to fulfill a prophecy. I don't care about the prophecies. I don't care about prophecies from thousands of years ago, from people that you think said it, might have said it. We don't know who said it. We don't know who wrote the book. All these things. I don't care what those prophets said, because I know who I am, and I know the relationship I have with God. So if I read it and it doesn't make sense to me, I can't use that material. And that's also, I mentioned I was going to go preach to the prisoners and things like that. Every time I went to get the background check or talk to the person at the prison, something always came up. Every single time. It was like little nudges. Like I was like, James, I don't know, you might want to wait on that. Or just something. I don't know. Every single time, the guy from the prison sent me down to get the background check. But he forgot to give me some kind of code that you're supposed to have, which I eventually found later, right? I eventually found the code later. It was buried in an email. But it's every time I went down to do it, something little would happen. Some little thing would happen just to derail me. So I didn't get down there and get the background check and get it all set up. And then, as that was doing that, I was reading through the Old Testament, right? So I'm getting through the Old Testament, and I don't even agree with a lot of it. Huge portions of it, right? Big things, right? Promised land, God giving you lamb, which we're still blowing people up over today. So, I had huge differences with the Old Testament. The sacrificial system, all right, the animal sacrifice, how stupid that is, because guess what? We keep sinning. So you're going to need to keep going out there and finding animals to slaughter, because you never stop sinning, which, it's why we're here. But but then that ties into Jesus, right? Because Jesus was the ultimate sacrifice that got rid of the Old Testament sacrificial system. But guess what? If animal sacrifice doesn't make any sense, because you're always going to have to find more animals to kill, because you're going to keep sinning, it's the same thing for Jesus. We can't have Jesus, like millions of Jesuses that we just murder every couple of weeks to kind of offset our sin. It's not going to work. Sacrificial systems like that do not work, because you always keep sinning, and you're always going to need someone else to clear the deck for you. You need someone else to just magically wipe that sin off of you. So you're going to need someone to murder or something. That's why the system is dumb. It doesn't work. And that's another thing when you're trying to tie in the Old Testament and the New Testament, like animal sacrifice was stupid. God created those animals, right? God cares about those animals. Those animals have souls just like you have souls, which is why when you take them and you start stabbing them, they're screaming. It's the same thing you would do, right? You defecate, they defecate. You have sex, they have sex. You both have children, offspring, whatever you want to call them. So it's just impossible to work with this material. And like I said, getting back to the prison thing. So something kept coming up every single time. And it was weird the way it kept happening. It's like God was like, maybe not. Don't do that. So I just kind of brushed it off slightly. Then I just got back into the reading. And I'm like, eventually I made it all the way through Jeremiah, like halfway through it. And I'm like, I can't do it anymore. I just can't do it. So number one, I can't go to prison because I can't teach the Old Testament. And there are some key things in the Old Testament that also relate to the New Testament. The sacrificial system. What is it? He's going to rise after 3 days because, to fulfill Jonah. I think that was Jonah he was talking about. So the guy who got stuck in a fish for 3 days and somehow made it out alive. And that's why, Jesus is going to have to raise after the third day. I can't work with the material. And I'd love to go in and talk to prisoners, about sin and about God. And, I can take The Way document. I can take that in there with me. It's very short and sweet and easy to go through. I can sit down and chat with them. But the problem is they're going to want me to go in there as a pastor or whatever term they would like to use. And I just can't do it because of the material. Because I could be sitting there and talking to someone and they'll be like, oh, no, hold on. No, it says right here that. No, I don't care what it says. Right? And I think that's what Jesus should have done. I think that's one mistake he made is instead of trying to shoehorn in with the Old Testament and try to like cobble it together and make it work. Like, look, if it's a bad product, right? If you're putting bad inputs in, you're going to get a bad output. It's just the way it works, right? You can't use faulty products and make like a great product. It's not going to work. So in my opinion, he should have just been like, look, if he wants to use the term Son of God, that's fine. He can use that. The Son of God, whatever term he'd like to use, the incarnation, and say that, look, I don't care, what your prophets said when they thought they were talking to someone, or they were just being human beings, and people thought they were prophets because they're very wise, or maybe, they said something that came through once or twice, and maybe because of that, I know how humans operate. Do you think that humans wouldn't manipulate the fact that people thought they talked for God for personal gain? Are you kidding me? You think that human beings, if they thought that people understood and were like, yeah, they speak for God, do you not think they would use that for personal gain? Have you ever met a human being? Yeah. Yeah, because they can be quite greedy, right? And they can lust for all sorts of things, not just money, not just girls or men or whatever sex, right? They can be envious of others, right? So they get greedy and they get lustful. Then the pride gets all puffed up, right? Then they overindulge in all the luxuries of life and the multiple houses or whatever, whatever it comes down to. Right? And they get wrathful because they want to protect all that stuff. But I'm not going to get caught in the same trap he did, where he keeps referencing back to the Old Testament. Oh, I want to fulfill these prophecies. Look, you can't prove those prophecies anyway. Nobody here was around when those folks were there. And a lot of that stuff was told after the fact, spread, person to person. I'm not sure if you ever played the telephone game, but things get messed up. Or things are written down 50, 100, 200 years after the fact. No. But I don't want this to get too long. Got my little timer over here now so I can keep track of this. All right, so let's just go. So, like I said, go back to the prison thing. Let me close that part out. So I will get in there eventually. I'll volunteer somehow. But I don't know how I can go in there right now because the only thing you can do is like a check a box, right? You have to check a box and say, well, I'm a Christian or Muslim or whatever it is, and I am a Christian, I am Christ, but at the same time, I'm using bad material, and I don't want to go in there and use bad material and then have some prisoner throw it in my face like, oh, that's not what it says right here. Well, I don't care what it says right there. I don't. Right? I'm Christ, so I'm the Word of God. So I don't care like what was written down thousands of years ago. And not only that, like they'll reference books that aren't even canonized. They weren't even included, right? When they got everyone together and they decided, oh, we can put this in there, but not this. And no way. I'm not trusting any of that stuff. All right? I've got a team that I work with upstairs. So I can get everything verified that I need verified. But I will get into the prisons eventually. I just don't know how I'm going to do it. Maybe I'll just have to volunteer just to talk to them, like talk to them on the side while I'm volunteering. Because if I go in there as a Christian and I say anything that's against that book right over there, I'll get tossed out of there. So it's going to be ridiculous. I'm going to have to figure that out. Maybe that's something I do later on, like once I get this dialed in. Maybe that's when I go. But I kept getting nudges and I couldn't figure out why. I'm like, what are you talking about? I should be going in there to talk to the prisoners. Why am I getting nudges? Like, why are you nudging me from not doing this? And it was multiple things that happened. It wasn't just the number that he forgot to give me that I found later. It was multiple things that happened and it kept stacking up. And like I said, I can read, the world. And when I think of things, I can see the reactions in the world. And I mean from everything. I'm not talking about like, just some things you see on TV. No, I'm talking about like animal movements and wind movements and ants walking on the ground and caterpillar, everything. And it's while I'm thinking of it, and I told you my mind, the way it works is very strange. My topics, as you can see from my videos, they bounce all over the place sometimes. It's like, dong, 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 it's bouncing all over. But even with all that in mind, I can still see the answers in the world, which is insane, but that's how it works. So I kept getting multiple nudges over and over, like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, which I didn't understand. And I kept trying to do it. And every time it just kept failing. And I couldn't figure out why. And I think it's a timing thing. It's just not time yet. It will be time, but not at the moment until I get this all figured out. But let's get onto this so we don't drag this on too long. I think you can see this. Yeah. So like I said, obviously, there are some great things in the Bible, in which a lot of preachers preach on every Sunday and Wednesday, whatever day they preach. There's gold in it. Not gold. I hate gold. But there's really good stuff in here. There's really holy principles in here, right? Beatitudes, everyone's probably familiar with those. Open his mouth and taught them. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Yeah, everyone should help out people with the poor in spirit. It happens to all of us. Blessed are those who mourn. They shall be comforted. Yeah. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Right. That's true. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Amen. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Yeah, you should be merciful. Because God sees how you treat the least of us. God sees that. Those are tests. And many of us fail those. Many. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Yep. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. I don't know if anyone from Israel is watching this, or from Russia or any other country, that's killing people. All right? Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. Peacemakers. Ceasefire. Let people out. Or just stop blowing up innocent people. Stop killing people. This goes for the terrorists too. Stop murdering people. Stop acting like you belong here. Why don't you help me fix this place? Because you're going to be here for a while, probably most of you. So let's at least fix it. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Yeah. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you, falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. A lot of the prophets, they had nice things to say too. Like I said, I have 2 pens, one yes, one no. So there were some good things said there too, right? Some good virtuous things, some holy things. It doesn't mean that I'm going to cater my message around what they said. And I'm definitely not going to hold up a book and say, 100% of what's in there is accurate. Of course it's not. Read it. Like most of the people that will critique me when I say stuff like that are people that haven't read the Bible cover to cover in what, 10, 15, 20 years or ever? I'm not sure what the percentage is, but sit down and read it. Start in the Old Testament and go all the way to the back. It's going to take you a long time. It's way too much material and it's full of lies and fabrications and exaggerations and all kinds of stuff. But just go read it. And all you got to do is just highlight the things that you don't agree with, things that you think are unholy, and you will find many in there, right? So I can't hold up that book and be like, this is the Word of God. I accept everything of it. I can't do that, right? As far as the Word of God, I'm as good as it gets for the last 2,000 some odd years. So let's see. Salt and the light. So these are my color systems here. The blue, I'm in agree with that. Those are okay. I'm fine with that. So you're the salt of the earth. But if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. That's violent, right? You're the salt of the earth. You're trying to bring God's holy word to the earth. Everyone goes through times in their life, especially when they're younger. Hopefully they grow out of it, where you're not in alignment with God. You're not abiding by God's covenant. Right? God's new covenant is new. Right? That's like Jesus came. They called it a New Testament because he counteracted the law. He says he was for it, but clearly he had positions that were very different from what the prophets had said, and the Pharisees and all that, the Torah. So, but no, you don't need to be trampling people under people's feet. Like, that's violent. See, that's what I don't agree with there. You're the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. I'm good with that. Sounds great. God isn't technically male or female, but we'll go with this. That's fine. It says Christ came to fulfill the law, which is odd because he had a whole new message. But do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. And see, this is where I think he should have just done his own thing. Like, if he was like me, then he has a direct connection and he's got resources. He can get things answered. It's not, why would you come? And he basically alluded to the fact that he was God on earth, right? If that's the case, right? And if he said that, and if that's the case, why in the world would you care what some prophet said from 1,000 years ago, or 500 years ago, or 100 years ago, or even during his time, right? Prophets are people that are supposed to talk to God. But Jesus Christ was supposed to be God incarnate, God himself, if you want to look at it that way. So why would he care what a prophet said? A prophet who, was sitting around and was daydreaming and thought that God told him something, or had a dream, right? Have you ever had a weird dream? Some people do, right? Or they just figured that other people thought they talked to God so they can kind of massage the message. And they even say that in the Old Testament. They say like some prophets get yelled at because they don't tell the king what the king wants to hear, but other prophets will. Right. So you can be manipulated through force or coerced through money to say what you think the king wants to hear. King's like, oh, I want to hear I'm going to win in battle. So you tell him that, and you can lie to him, or you can tell him the truth, be like, no, you're about to get stomped. But either way, that's a 50-50 no matter how you look at it. So yeah, I'll definitely disagree with him here. I'm not here to fulfill any prophecies from books that were written, way before my time, by people that we may or may not know, in that anthology collection of books. So no, I'm not here to fulfill the law or to work on any prophecies that are written in the book, right? I work with God. So whatever God wants me to do, that's what I'll do. And it'll be what it'll be. Not an iota, not a dot will pass from the law until all is accomplished. I think that's highly doubtful, because I could care less about a third temple, and I have no interest in going to a country that blows up children. I understand there was a terrorist attack. It doesn't give you the right to go murder innocent people. And you must honestly want war, because you're not stupid. You know that by blowing up all these innocent people, all you're doing is creating a terrorist group You're creating people that are going to hate you for probably their entire lives. All they're going to remember is running around inside of Gaza and looking up as bombs are falling out of the sky and buildings are crumbling down, right? And ambulances are blown up and hospitals are blown up and, they can hear the drones just buzzing overhead. Do you think they're ever going to forget that? Those people that had limbs blown off, or their brother or mother or uncle or grandparents, people they know, friends, you think they're ever going to forget that an Israeli bomb dropped out of the sky from, who knows, 20,000 feet, 10,000 feet, who knows, dropped down and blew up their house, blew up hospitals, blew up ambulances, murdered people, pushed them out of their property, right? Absolute oppression, right? Genocide of a people. Do you think they're ever going to forget that? No. Right? And Bibi's not dumb. He knows that these people will never forget this. And all you're doing is creating more war. So if you're a country that loves war, right? You love the military industrial complex, you love war, you love defense manufacturers, things like that. You don't ever want war to stop. You never want to be at peace because you have an economy built on building like offensive and defensive military equipment. You have a gigantic military that needs a budget, right? How are you going to get that budget approved if you're sitting around watching butterflies? No one's going to approve the budget because you're not having to go to war. So some people, not everyone wants to do away with war. Not everyone wants peace, especially if you look at someone who's come up in their whole life has been like in the military and, they spent their time getting all these badges and things put on from these wars that they're in and all these accreditations for like offensive and defensive systems that they can operate. Those people are, they've been in war so long, it's what they know. It's what they know is either threats, right? They call it a deterrent, but it's like you're threatening someone. That's what they know is war. Not everybody wants war to go away, especially the people in power. And like I said, they have budgets to fulfill, and those budgets have to get approved somehow. So just don't assume that all these leaders want world peace. Like if you could offer it to them and say, hey, what if we could get everyone on the planet to agree with each other and treat each other respectfully as children of God and stop seeing each other as tribes and warring tribes and like, now this is my country and your country, or this is my religion. Like, what if you could get everybody on the same playing field? All of them. Everybody in unison, singing from the same hymn sheet. And there'd no longer be a need for war. You wouldn't need all of these military vessels going around protecting trade routes and things like that and protecting against invasions. Everyone would just get along in peace. Do you think that everybody would want that to happen? No. No, they wouldn't. Many people would hate for that to happen because of their national pride or their greed or, business arrangements they have with other countries that they're reaping the resources out of and they're ripping those people off. There are all kinds of like little power structures and systems that are in place in our global system, little power structures that are set up, and they only operate and they work because of the way things work now, which is absolutely broken, which is a world full of sin and hatred and violence and theft, greed, murder, rape, arson. This place sucks. But that kind of chaos works out for a lot of people at the very top. Not all the way at the top. They're not even close to that. But the top of the bottom, right? The top of this place, right? They're doing well here, at least on this floor. So because of that, a lot of people won't want world peace. They just won't. Because it'll break all of those little power structures they have set up and people that owe them favors and people that are scared of them because they'll release information or, they know what you've done, like these little dirty deeds and tricks they have on people. It's disgusting. It's a swamp. But because of that, there will be some of them that will never want peace, ever. So just keep that in mind. But back to this, yeah. So as far as fulfilling prophecies, I don't care about that. I'm not really worried about what the prophet said. I'll read it, and some things I'll agree with, some things I won't, a lot I won't. But I can't, walk into like a church and get up on the, the altar or whatever and start telling you like, oh, this is 100% the word of God. No, it's not. I can tell you that for a fact. So let's go down here. Anger. You've heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not murder, or whoever murders will be liable to judgment. That is true. But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council. I don't know what council they're talking about. I know it said I read it one time, it was like basically go to your brother and talk to him in person, or, a brother of a church, maybe they meant it in that context. If that doesn't work, then pull in members of the church. Yeah, you don't need to bring members of the church to talk to me if we disagree. You can just talk to me alone. And then after that, it was like basically like excommunicate him and put him out of the church and never talk to him. It was crazy. But this one, so whoever's angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Yeah, I mean, you should get along with your family, right? You should have good relations with your family. You're not always going to agree on everything, but you should, respect your mother and your father. Respect all your family members, not just your mother and father. Respect all of them. It's your family. All right? You can choose your friends. You can choose your business partners and people like that, your acquaintances. You can choose all them. You can't choose your family. When you're born, you get what you get. Like, that's your family. You can choose your wife and your husband, but as far as your mother and father, that's who you have. But yeah, treat your family really well. You should, unless they veer totally off the path and they just won't listen and they won't come around. Then maybe there are times in your life where you're not going to be around them as much. But you just pray for them, and hopefully they get the word and come back around. But you should always try to work things out with your family, of course. The council, yeah, I don't know about a council. You can come to me directly. You don't need to get people from the church with you and come over and try to tag team it. That's unnecessary. But whoever says you fool will be liable to hell of fire. Are you kidding me? This is from Jesus directly, right? So if you call someone a fool, you should be liable to the hell of fire. Now, how ridiculous does that sound? All you did was call someone a fool. Right? You shouldn't do it. Right? You shouldn't use that kind of nasty language to people. But if it happens, you can say you're sorry to God and apologize. You can apologize to the person you offended. Right? You can do that. You shouldn't be burning in a pit of fire for eternity. I've already explained that penalty would be too strong for any kind of infringement. For eternity, anyway. There are plenty of horrible things that can happen here that will suffice for a hellish environment. There are lots of options. Plenty of things that can happen to people. Even if you were in a pit of fire, eternity? Come on now. Forever? No. Not for mistakes you made for 80 years. Even if they were horrendous, nasty mistakes. Those can be offset. God can do anything. Right? So if we do dumb things that allow dumb things to happen to us, He can sit back and watch that. So, this isn't a free-for-all, even though a lot of people treat it like it is. That's part of the test. It's not a free-for-all. Judgment does happen. So, but pit of fire for calling someone a fool? No, absolutely. Come on now. That's crazy. So if you are offering your gift at the altar, I'm not sure what gift he's talking about there. If he's talking about slaughtered animals or cash, whatever it is. I don't like either, because I think money has corrupted the church. 100%. I mean, they might be, I'm sure they're doing some good things too, volunteering and things like that. Oh, excuse me. But I don't think that's the majority of what they're doing. I've seen these churches. They look like McMansions. They're little Disney worlds. They're little, palaces, some of them. So I would hope that a lot of that money is going, externally out of the church into helping people in need, which is what Jesus did preach about, right? Helping the least of us. So I would certainly hope that a lot of those funds going to those churches are going to the least of us. Not just building your country club up, your country club church, not just building that up and putting in a K through 12 school program so you can make more money on that, you can profit on that, right? Don't turn your churches into this little compound for just you and your flock, right? Just your flock. And then you kind of forget about everybody else in your city or in your nation or in the world. Don't do that. There's an opportunity cost for how much money you dump into your churches that you can't be spending elsewhere to help people at the bottom. All right, the bottom billion. People that are really destitute, that really need help. Those are the people God wants us to reach out to. We all deserve help. That's true. But you have to consider your lifestyle and your expenditures and where you put your money, and then look at the opportunity cost. And then look at the world as a whole, not just your neighborhood. Not just your little beautiful neighborhood with your picket white fences and your beaches and lakes and pools and your sea-doos and golf carts and all that. Don't just look at your little neighborhood. Like, you need to think bigger. You need to think of the world, the entire world. And all the people that are living on like $1 a month or $2 a month or whatever it is. There are people that are struggling in huts, struggling. They don't have clean water. They're drinking water out of ponds. It's not nice. It's not refined water. It's just like natural water. And it causes problems in their body, massive problems. And guess what? If you're drinking water out of sources like that, you have much bigger problems also, like healthcare, nutrition, hydration, right? Shelter. You have big problems. Your problems are not like, should I upgrade my golf cart and get the newest one? Should I put a new engine on that boat? It's got 3 engines, but maybe I need to, fix one of them or put the... There's an opportunity cost by how you spend your money. And having more than you need is what you would consider greed. And that might tie back into envy, right? Because you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, whatever that saying is. All right? That's greed. And it's going to bump up your pride. And it's going to make you lust for things, worldly things. All right? And you're going to overindulge. Going to have more than you need. Going to be a glutton. So there's an opportunity cost to all the money you dump into your pleasure toys and your larger homes and your beautifully manicured lawns, which we don't need to manicure. You can just let them wild out. It's okay. That's how God would let it happen. It's okay. You don't need to use all the water and all the money getting your beautiful, pretty little Monopoly yard, set up. You can just let it grow wild. It's okay. And your homeowners association, they should be okay with that. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Because then you have to dump all the fertilizers on it, which is not good for the environment. And then you're wasting all the money. I know there's some people in that line of work that will be, we'll have to figure that out. But we don't need the probably billions of pounds of fertilizer we're dumping into our yards and all the money and water and everything else. I don't want to get too far off topic. We'll leave that one. All right. So let's see. So yeah, you don't need to go offering gifts at an altar. Number one, I'd be very curious how they're spending that money, because if you were to ask God about it, I don't think you need like a $200,000 piano system, or you're going to put in some smoke machines, you're going to put in the volleyball courts. I think your money could be spent much better elsewhere. If you take the world into perspective. Not just your city or your neighborhood or your state or your country, like the entire world, all of it. And then figure, if you ask God, say, God, is this how I could be helping out the people that are most in need? Does it pass that test? When your church is going to spend money, do we have all the homeless people off the streets? All the people have shelter? Everyone's got food and water and things that they need? And not even in your neighborhood, right? Or your city or state, like in the world. There are people that are dying of starvation. Their ribs are like sticking out of their bodies. And over here, at least in the U.S., we've all got, hey, me included, we got a few extra pounds on us. So, we can definitely find food. That's for sure. But there are other people in other parts of the world where that is not the case. We have the luxury of throwing food out. The luxury of tossing out water bottles that have half the water still in them, in the plastic that we shouldn't be using anyway. Right? We have that luxury. Just keep in mind, as you're throwing away that water bottle, or you're throwing away that half a sandwich, or whatever it is, someone's dying of starvation and thirst. Or they're drinking nasty, disgusting water, and they're getting all kinds of infections because of it. So, just think about that opportunity cost when you're paying, for your pleasure products, and you're building out your churches for an additional $1 million or whatever it is. Just keep that in mind. All right. Altars, we're done with that. Then come and offer your gift. No, thank you. Truly I say to you, you will never get out until you have paid the last penny. I guess that's talking about loans. I'm not sure. Yeah, hold on. Come to terms quickly with your accuser while you're going with him to court, lest your accuser hand you over to the judge and the judge to the guard and you to be put in prison. So I think it's like a debtor's prison. That's what I'm getting out of it, because you're being sued. We're in a very litigious society. My girlfriend, she was in an auto accident when she was younger, and I think either her insurance had expired by like a day or two. I think that's what it was. I think it was like a day or two that was expired, something like that, but they wouldn't cover it. So it's $500,000 that she owes. $500,000. She doesn't even have a job. She's got like 20, I don't know, like 26, 27 screws. She's got a bunch, 30, I don't know. She's got a bunch of screws like in her hip, like keeping her hip together. It was a bad accident. But the bill's like $500,000. And she's got some other bills and she's not working. So, I mean, what? You're going to throw her in prison? And keep her in prison? Hold on. You will never get out until you paid the last penny. Okay, well, that's Jesus for you. So Jesus would have my girlfriend thrown into prison because she's about to get sued. She's going to have to file bankruptcy, but she's about to get sued otherwise. So he would have her in prison for the rest of her life until she could pay it, which, if you're in prison, I'm not sure how you're supposed to work. How are you supposed to pay it back in prison? It's $500,000. It was an auto accident, huge reconstructive surgery on her hip. I mean, like it's like 20, I'll get the exact, I think it's like 25, 27 screws, something like that. I don't know. It's a lot. She showed me the picture, the x-ray. It looks crazy. They're all over the place. But, like, I can't agree with this. So we're going to do debtor prisons now? No, I don't agree with that. You've heard that it was said, "You shall not commit adultery." But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Well, adultery technically is when you're sleeping with a married person, right? That's what adultery is. I know sexual immorality, they go into that. But in this context, he's using it just as lustful, right? When you look at someone lustfully, you've already committed it. He calls it adultery. So a little different. But if your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. So to every man and woman that happens to watch this video, whenever you happen to see it, if you've ever had a lustful thought, I want you to tear out your eyes and throw them away. Don't really do that. I don't mean that. But I'm just saying, this is what Jesus said, right? If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. Do you honestly think that that's practical? Who would have any eyes left? Nobody. Who has not looked at someone lustfully in their entire life? For it is better that you lose one of your members than that your whole body be thrown into hell. Again, the burning fiery furnace for eternity, forever? No, that is too high a price to pay. There's many, many things that could happen to us that God could let happen to us that wouldn't require you to burn for eternity. It's too high a price to pay, especially for looking at someone lustfully. Are you kidding me? Have you seen the American system? I'll just pick on America because I'm here. Have you seen the music videos? Have you seen how these girls dress? Even my girlfriend, I have to tell her, I'm like, look, you can't be wearing that stuff. She's got these little American Standard shorts, I guess you would call them, which is basically nothing. It's like Daisy Duke shorts. I mean, they're not that bad, but they're still too bad because you're seeing all this thigh and look, keep it covered down to your knees. Nobody needs to see anything above your knee. Just cover that up. No one needs to see it because you're just going to create lust in people. Which goes back to my point, right? If everyone's going to be tearing their eyes out, well, then why are all the women walking around like prostitutes? And the men. Why are all the men walking around with their shirts off, with their ripped up muscles, right? They're all lathered up in oil at the beach. They're walking around. They're super proud. Same thing with the women. They're doing the same thing. So are you kidding me? If everyone's got to rip their eye out, and you're out here dressed like a Jezebel, right? Or a hooker or a prostitute, whatever term you'd like to use, male escort, whatever term you want to use. Don't you realize that you're causing lust? You do. That's why you're dressed like that. You're dressed like that because you want to entice people. But what you don't realize is that you're enticing people to sin. Now, ripping their eyes out, that's way too far. That's ridiculous. But it is a sin. And it will cause you to do things, with your hands that you shouldn't be doing. Right? You shouldn't be masturbating. But if people are walking around, basically parading themselves around nakedly, as looking like prostitutes, right? Or a strip club dance or something like that, it's going to create lust in people. Go watch a music video. Any of them. Just go outside. If you're in a Western country, just go outside. You don't even need to go to the beach. If you go to the beach, they're going to be just straight up naked. So you can forget that. You can't go to the beach. But just go anywhere else. Go to church, right? Go to church. Go to church and you'll find girls in there. Maybe not the Daisy Dukes, but close to it. They'll have skin-tight skirts on, mini skirts, whatever you want to call them. Their knees aren't covered. They're going up real high. Right? Shirts are just basically painted on. Everything is shown. You may have spaghetti straps, got a lot of shoulder skin action going on. That's creating lust in people, and they do it on purpose. It's a cultural thing, right? Our culture, at least here in the U.S., our culture is pro-sex. It's everywhere. Girls, even my girlfriend, she complains to me because I've had to kind of prod her and nudge her. I'm like, look, you can't be wearing that stuff. I don't want you walking around my house. My brother's here, my mom's here. I don't want you walking around looking like that, and I don't want to be with you. I don't want to be walking around when you're dressed like looking like a slut, right? While I'm sitting here telling people you should be righteous and holy, and you should, be dressed in a holy way, like in a very humble attire, right? With not showing, nothing like super tight fitting, not showing a lot of skin, things like that. That's what I'm preaching, and then you're dressed, like a little Jezebel. I can't have that. It's killing my message. So even I had to politely nudge her so that she could go, get that taken care of. And we're working on that. But then we got to donate these clothes. I don't want homeless people walking around in Daisy Dukes. I don't want them getting raped. So we may just have to throw them out. I don't even think we can give that to anybody else. But yeah, it's everywhere. So if this was true, and all you girls out there and guys, right? You guys with your shorty shorts on and your shirts off, you're walking around all buffed up, you're trying to look as appealing, as sexually appetizing as possible, men and women. If this was true, you're going to cause people to get their eyes ripped out, which I know that's ridiculous, but still, you are causing people to lust, and you're doing it on purpose. And considering where we are, I'm not surprised. That makes sense because of where we are. But we're going to have to change it. We have to raise the floor up. Because I think you know by now that we're not on the top floor. All right? And I broke in here for a reason. To fix the place. But that's going to require all of us to change. Drastically. Because we're operating like the floor that we're on. Currently, it's normal. That's true. Because of where we are. It's not normal. If you were able to go to the top floor and hang out for a day or two, or just to get that mindset and then come back down here, your eyes would be blown wide open. And you would be very upset to be here. Because it's sad. It's sad the way that we operate, in this place. And it's really sad that we consider it normal. Yeah, it's normal if you're from here, right? This is normal, but only here. This isn't normal upstairs at all, that's why we're not there. But we'll fix it. It's just going to require all of us to change, and then we'll see how long it takes time-wise. So we went through the lawsuits. Yeah, thrown into hell. No. At least not fiery. And if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. I don't think I need to say what that might mean. I think it's pretty obvious to everyone who can read that. I don't think you need a scholar to interpret that one for you. It's right after lust, and he's talking about your right hand causing you to sin. So, to everyone watching the video, if you're going to believe this, right, every word for word, it's all absolutely 100% true. Okay? How many guys and girls out there would be missing a hand right now? And if you wanted to believe every word of this, don't do this. But how many of you would just saw your hand off? Not because of theft, right? Which is ridiculous in its own. That's a ridiculous penalty to have to pay. But per this wording, right? And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. No one's going to do that because it's ridiculous. But it does speak to the issue of people dressing in very provocative sexual manners that cause people to lust, that cause people to use their hands in ways that they should not be using them. Because when you're using your hand like that, what are you going to be thinking of? Something very lustful. Something you probably wouldn't want your neighbors to know about, or the people at your church, or your mosque, or whatever. Right? There's a reason you keep those thoughts in your head. But you're going to be having lustful thoughts while you're doing whatever it is you're doing with your hand. But even if you do it, you can tell God, like, hey, I screwed up. I was looking at that guy or girl, which is pretty much all of them out in the public, out in the wild. They were dressed in very provocative manners. I didn't have good eye discipline. My eyes were dropping down to areas they shouldn't be dropping. I started having thoughts. I was getting circular thoughts. I was getting aroused, and then bloop, you did something you shouldn't have done with your hand. So, yeah, you shouldn't be doing that. That's true. Well, I'll agree with him on that. But cutting off your hand? No. This isn't 1000 BC Judea, Samaria, or wherever. I got a new map. It's actually pretty cool. It's from the times of Jesus. So, Idumea, Galilee, yeah, all these various regions. But no, this isn't 1000, 2000 BC, 0 AD, whatever. We're not lopping off hands because you made the mistake of looking at a guy or girl lustfully. Because in America, at least where I am, it's horrific. And I can see why the Middle East laughs at us. They're over there like the robes and everything with the burqas and stuff like that. That's way too far. But, they're way more modest in their clothing than we are. So I can understand why Middle Easterners look at look at Americans or Westerners in general and think that, they're basically prostitutes over there and sex workers. Yeah. Yeah, I get it because I've seen the way they dress and it looks like they should be dancing on a table, right? Waiting for you to tuck money in there. That's how a lot of girls and guys dress in the U.S. And they do it on purpose because the fashion industry has turned us all into strip club workers. That's how a lot of people walk around. So that'll take some time to change too. All right, moving along. Oh my goodness. Sorry, I got this little hourglass. I thought it was going to help. I'm running long, but it's okay. I haven't done one of these in a few days, so forgive me. So let's see. Divorce. It's also said, whoever divorces his wife, interpret wife or husband, let him get a certificate of divorce. But I say to you that everyone who divorces his wife, except on the ground of sexual immorality, makes her commit adultery. And whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. No. I mean, think about that. If that's the only valid reason is sexual immorality, like, what if your husband or wife is just beating you to a pulp every night, right? They're getting drunk. They're doing drugs. Maybe they're not cheating on you. Maybe, you wish they were so you could get a divorce, but probably not if it's like physical. But they're saying only sexual morality. That doesn't make any sense. Literally, you could go home and your husband or wife could be sitting there just pounding down like a fifth of Jack Daniels all day long. They're drunk as a skunk. They're upset. They're mad. They're throwing food all over the place. All right? You come in, they're just beating. They're just beating on you, right? Slapping you, verbally assaulting you, beating the kids, throwing the kids against the walls. Who knows what they're doing? But there are valid reasons to get a divorce, right? It's okay. Like, a lot of people marry young before they're, in a good state of mind, and then people grow apart, or they grow up, actually. So, I mean, marriage is sacred. It's sacred, right? It's a sacred union under God. It's how you should be having your children. That's the best way you can set your kids up for success, right? Is to have them in like a holy union under God. And then you can have your children, and then you stay with your wife or your husband your entire life. And you make it work. You're going to have good times and bad times, but you make it work, right? You don't beat on each other. You don't cheat on each other. There's no sexual immorality of any kind. Guy and the girl, you both have good eye discipline. You're not going to insult your partner by ogling somebody else that you shouldn't be ogling, right? You're going to keep your eyes nice and tight where they should be. And then you'll have time to raise your kids up in a stable environment with good Christian values. It's work in progress, but Christianity, it's great. There's just some bad stuff in there we're going to weed out, but good Christian values. Teach them how to help others. Teach them how to help the least of us. That's what God would want, to help. Be of service. Don't teach your kids to run around and get the best job they can get so that they can go on a pleasure-seeking mission, so they can make it their priority to go on as many vacations as they can, so that they can make it a priority to have all the expensive luxury items in the world, so they can sit around and just count the money in their 401k just waiting to retire. That is a selfish crap existence. That is not a holy existence. If you want to live a holy existence, you would be a person of service. And if you have Christian values, then your whole house should feel like that. Your husband, the wife, right? You should both be of service. You're looking of ways to help people locally, in your church if you choose to go, if that aligns with your beliefs. And then, in the world too, not just locally, but in the world, everyone that needs help, we should be of service to God, be God's hands and feet. And if you're in a nice, stable relationship, right, a marriage, and you have kids, you can instill those values in your kids. And then if they decide to have kids, they can do the same thing. They can stay in a marriage, they can instill those values in their kids, and it goes on. And then society gets fixed. But if you've got a husband or wife who's maybe got massive, substance abuse issues, they're always cursing, they're really selfish, they're greedy, they're lustful, whatever, they're beating you, there are reasons to get a divorce, right? And whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. That's not true. You could meet a very nice divorced woman or man, right, who's a very nice person who just messed up and they married the wrong person. Oh, hold on. Or let's say they just got married young and they grew apart, right? It could be that. But it doesn't matter. Like, there are really nice divorced men and women out there that I'm sure would make a great husband or wife to someone. So no, it's not adultery just because they happen to be divorced. Maybe they were adulterous and that's why they got divorced, but that's between them and God. So that's do your due diligence for sure. I'm just saying there are valid reasons that someone could be divorced. Oaths. What do we got here? Again, you've heard it was said you should not swear falsely, but shall perform to the Lord what you have sworn. Yeah, keep your word. I say to you, do not take an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by earth, for it is the footstool. Well, yeah, and then, yeah. Or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. No, it is not. I don't believe in kings. I know they say like King Christ or whatever it is. Historically, maybe a king for God, maybe, but I don't even like the term because I see how kings operate here. A king is not something nice here. It's something bad. It's someone who's got way more power than they should have, which makes them way too greedy, which gives them massive pride issues, gives them a gigantic ego. And to keep their king, right, to keep their beautiful, stupid little crown, they'll do pretty much anything. They'll hack body parts off. They'll have people killed. They'll have people set up. They'll lie about people. They'll have you fired from your job. They will manipulate and twist arms and do whatever they have to do to stay in power because of their pride. They could never possibly step down because their pride is out of control. Their ego is massive. So kings here on earth are not good. That is a bad thing. They're going to have way more than they need. Trust me, they're going to check all the wrong boxes right over there. Pretty much all of them. So that's why Jerusalem will not be a city of a great king. And I don't know why, if there was a great king, they would even want to go to Jerusalem. A city that lives by the sword, that blows up men, women, and children every single day, chars them, third-degree burns. I'm sure pregnant women are getting killed. Children are running around, looking around, hoping a bomb doesn't drop on them. Buildings are crushing all around them. Their hospitals are being blown up. All right? They're having problems getting food, water. They got a few, a few supplies trickling in. Even if there was a great king, and I don't like the term king. I don't like the term king. I don't like gold. I don't like fancy, luxurious items. And the pride in Jerusalem, can you imagine? They're already about the proudest people in the world. God's chosen people. Do you think God would ever be dumb enough to give human beings that title? Because you understand what it would do? It would create pride in those people. And then they would start to think that they're better than everybody else because we're God's chosen people, not you. We're the chosen people. None of you, just us. God doesn't really care about you, just us. God would never do that. That's why I have a huge problem with that book. And then God's going to give you land, your holy land, for you special people. But I just need you to genocide all the people that happen to be on it. And then I need you to keep that genocide going all the way up until 2023, when the last remnant, right, of the Palestinians get kicked out of Gaza, and then you can start working on the West Bank. That's why I'm not sitting here trying to shoehorn in with anything that was said before me. I'm here. I'm going to do my thing. But no, I don't think there'll ever be a great king in Jerusalem, if I had to guess. All it would do is cause more pride, and they've already got plenty. Let what you say be simply yes or no. No. That's clear. So retaliation. You've heard it was said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. How ridiculous is that? That's the same nonsense they're doing in Jerusalem today. It's exactly what they're doing, right? The terrorists attack them. Okay. So then you're going to attack them back. So what's going to happen? They're going to get upset with you, and they're going to attack you back. And then you're going to attack them. And after a while, it's just like a snake just eating its own tail. You're just constantly doing the same thing. You never get off that wheel of hate. You just hate each other, and you're okay with murdering because you don't follow God's commandments, which is why this place looks the way it does anyway. Exactly why it looks the way it does. But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil. No. Like, take Russia, for example. Ukraine, they're being attacked, right? Russia is taking forces over there and attacking them in their homeland, trying to steal more land, right? That's what they're doing. So this is a bit of a different situation. It's not like the Jerusalem situation, right? Israel, it's not quite the same thing, right? Because Ukraine didn't go attack Russia. Ukraine was just sitting there being Ukraine. And then Russia decided, well, I'm an evil dictator. I'm just going to go take stuff. I like war spoils. I like killing people. I like stealing land. So I'll just go do that. So that's what he did. That's what he's doing currently. But it's different because what you have going on in Israel, that goes back, it's a historical issue, right? It's kind of a national issue between the nations. There's a lot of biblical history there between the Philistines and the Hebrews. So this goes back a long way. Which obviously, some of that argument, the biblical stuff, doesn't even matter because of what I've already explained. Between chosen people and Holy Land, things like that. There's one Holy Land, and this isn't it. This, please just look around at the world, and especially once that veil is ripped off and you can see this place for what it is, you'll be fully certain that this is not the top floor. At all. Over time, that will come to you and you'll see it. But this is not the top. So, but yeah, just back to that issue. So it's way different. Their history, they have a lot of history there, but they're stuck in that cycle. You had terrorists act crazy and violent and attack Israel. At that point, Hamas is bad, right? There's a terrorist organization. I know they're also a political organization, but they're acting like terrorists, correct? They claimed it, right? They claimed the attack. So Hamas is a terrorist organization. That's fine. But then what does Israel do? They act like even greater terrorists. So instead of just beefing up their defenses, trying to negotiate, get their people back, they decided to murder 10,000 people. And from what I understand from the reports, only about 1,000 or so came over as part of the terrorist, right? The terrorist group, it was like 1,000 or so. So you've already killed like 10,000. I think it's like 10,000 by now, 9,000, 10,000. So by now you have to admit that you probably killed at least 8,000 people, innocent people. And I think 50% of the population in Gaza is under the age of 18. So like 50% are kids. And some of these, I mean young kids, not 17. I'm talking some of these kids are babies. You see the pictures covered in blood and dust from all the fragments and all the building materials that they've inhaled. Who knows what that's going to cause later on. But that's what Israel's doing. Israel's response to a terrorist attack was to prove that they are also terrorists. Not only that they're also terrorists, that they are also the bigger terrorist in the terrorist fight. All right? They were attacked by terrorists, that is true. But their response should not have been, well, I'll show you because I'm angry and I'm wrathful. So I'm going to show you how big of a terrorist I can really be. And then start blowing up civilians. Doing 10 times the more terrorist activity than was done upon them. I think 1,400 Israelis were killed, or people that were in Israel at the time. So Israel's response to that so far is to slaughter 10,000 people, 9,000, 10,000, whatever it is as of today. It's a bouncing ball. And of that, where are your hostages? Right? Because your intelligence agency, who somehow didn't see this coming and somehow allowed them to kill 1,400 people before they repelled them back across the border, your wonderful intelligence agency is the same one giving you intelligence on where these hostages are as you're dropping, 8,000 bombs or whatever it is, 10,000 bombs? You're dropping bombs all over that city. You're blowing it up. How many of your own hostages have you already killed by bombs? And granted, you'll just blame it on Gaza. You'll blame it on the Palestinians and say the terrorists did it. I know that. But you're never going to claim that, I found them, they were blown up. You'll just say, the Hamas did it. But you don't even know where these people are. Because your intelligence can't be that good. Because your intelligence is the one that lets you get 1,400 people killed while they ran, they were on a rampage in your country for hours and hours before they were repelled. So I'm just curious how many you've blown up, which maybe you know about, maybe you don't. Yeah. Do not resist the one that's evil. No, you have to resist. There are evil people here. I think that's obvious. Just turn on the news, you'll see it. Plenty of evil people here currently as it stands today. But if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other one also. I'm all about nonviolence, but what does that mean? Like Ukraine is just supposed to let Russia come in there and just take them over and murder and slaughter them? That doesn't make any sense, right? Bad things are allowed to happen here, which is why some people, especially people in leadership, love this place. Because up until recently, they've had free reign to do whatever they wanted. Right? Some people would rather reign in hell than serve God. That's true. Some people love it here. They're all about it. Because through coercion and threats and murder and torture, they can get away with a lot. And they have been able to up until recently when things started to change. So understand that there are certain principalities here that do not want peace. They'll never want peace. They hate it. Right? It's because of war that they have a lot of the things they have, and they like the power structures they have set up. And they don't want to see them change, but they are changing and they will continue to change. Because God has had enough of the nonsense down here. That's for sure. And if anyone would sue you and take your tunic, let him have your cloak as well. Not an attorney. I don't want to give into your civil lawsuits and things like that. But you can sue people as a means of attack too. Not just like someone actually wronged you and you're trying to get your money back. You can do it aggressively too. What do they call it? Lawfare or something like that. You just kind of sue people until you bankrupt them. There's some nasty things you can do legally. Give to the one who begs from you and do not refuse the one who would borrow from you. That's true. That's just God helping out the least of us. And I think that's what we're expected to do. That's what God would want us to do. Help out the least of us, people that need help. Don't focus on pleasure seeking and acquiring things that you're going to leave here anyway when you die. Right? They say store up your treasure in heaven. Yeah. Try to get there. Yeah, just get to heaven. Trust me, you'll be fine. But you can't live like this place. You have to live as if you're already there. Just live like you want to go. Act as if. Love your enemies. Pray for them. Pray for the people that persecute you. Should you love them? That's a far stretch. It's hard to love someone who's trying to cut your head off or your hands or wants to rape you or set you on fire. So there are limits. You know, we're all products of God. That's true. And we all have free will. That's true. But some of us choose to use that free will to be absolutely evil, to get whatever they want in this lifetime. Does that work out for them in the long haul? Oh no, not at all. That bill does get paid because your soul is eternal, your body is not. So there's plenty of time for God to take care of justice, to balance those scales out, right? To reap what you sow. God takes care of that. So I would recommend that you focus on where you're going next instead of being pulled into like the pleasure trap here, where your whole goal in life, you think, oh, my goal is just to make a ton of money and just acquire things and luxury items and just have fun and go on vacation, do all this. That's not why you're here. Because when you die, God's going to be like, okay, let's take a look. Let's take a highlight reel here of all the people you helped. Let's see all the beautiful, wonderful things you did for the least of us, for the least of the people down. How did you help the starving people, the thirsty people, the incarcerated people, the people that need help, the people that are being attacked? How did you help the least of them? Let's look at that highlight reel and then figure out how long that video feed, that going through of your memory banks, right? Those visions, seeing all that, how long would that take? Hopefully a very long time. You want that reel to be nice and long. Not the reel of things that you screwed up. That reel's probably going to be long, but hopefully the one of you helping the least of us is a good long reel too. You don't want it to be lopsided. Giving to the needy. Beware of practicing your righteousness before other people in order to be seen by them. Yeah, that's when you give to the needy. Sound no trumpet before you as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and the streets, that they may be praised by others. Right, so help people just because they need help. You're not doing it, you're not like sitting there feeding the homeless with your cell phone out. And you're like, hey, you're getting clicks. You're like, right? So you can post on social media about that stuff. It's nice to advertise that you're doing that. Maybe other people want to come do it, but I don't think you need to advertise it all that much. I think you just need to go help them, and people will just naturally see you doing it. But I don't think you need to be like feeding the homeless in your live stream. Oh, look at this homeless person I'm feeding. This is amazing. This is great. Like, that's unnecessary. So this part I totally agree with, right? Don't help people just because it makes you look good, or your PR agent said, oh, I need you to go do this, go get some pictures with these people so it'll look good. No, because God knows your true intentions. If you're doing it for self-gratification or to promote yourself so you can make more money and buy more luxury products and live like this place, no, God's not going to be happy with that. If you're doing it because you just want to help people, right? You want to help God's creations, the earth, the animals, us, all of it, right? Which in turn helps your soul. That makes sense. But don't do it just because your PR agent told you to, or because you think it looks good, because it makes you feel good. You do it because you're helping those people, or the planet or the animals, whatever it is. Be God's hands and feet here. See, because they have received their reward. Yeah, if it's like false, if you're doing it just for looks. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that giving may be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Yeah, God sees you helping people out. And God knows what your motivations are for that. So don't think, you can lie to me, you can lie to your parents, your friends, everyone here. You can lie to everyone, but you can't lie to God. And when you die, you'll figure that out. But you cannot lie to God. So if you're doing stuff like this, do it for the right reasons. Don't do it for you. Forget about you. You doesn't matter. It's about all the other people, right? Instead of like inwardly focusing on you, you should be focusing on the world and everyone out there, right? Service to others outwardly, right? You want to serve others, not service to self inwardly. That's the key difference. Lord's Prayer. This is a good one here. All right, this is the good part. Our Father in heaven. Father, work with me on that one. Hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. That's the great part. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts. I think it's trespasses in some versions. As we have also forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Amen. That's a good one. I like that one. Treasures in heaven. We talked about this one. What? Do not lay up for yourself treasures on earth where moth and rust and destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be. That's true. But we talked about that one. So don't worry about the things here. Like I said, these bodies are term limited. Your soul is not. Your soul's eternal. Doesn't mean it's going to end up in a great situation. I'm trying to put that as nicely as I can. So you reap what you sow, and you're going to be judged on like how you treat the least of us, how you help God's creations, people that need help, right? You're going to be judged on how you focus outwardly, not how you're completely selfish, which is like the root of all sin, right? Selfishness is the root of every single sin. You care more about yourself than you do for other people. That's what causes sin. Number one, you don't listen to God. And God gives you commandments so that you can actually take care of others and you can protect your soul, but you're judged on how you're of service, right? You want to reign in hell, or do you want to serve God in heaven? It's an easy decision, trust me. You just can't see it right now. But reigning is temporary. Serving God, that has eternal benefits forever. Reigning for other causes, other principalities, that may have short-term benefits here. Maybe for a part of your life, maybe for half your life, maybe for all your life. But trust me, your body will perish. And God knows everything you have done, every intention in your mind for everything you have done, nothing is hidden. And you will reap what you sow. So keep that in mind. So I would worry much more about your eternal journey than I would whatever kind of vile ways you need to get your money to be comfortable here. So listen to God's commandments and follow them, and you're going to be just fine. It's simple. Which leads us to this point. I'll leave it here. No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. Right? So I'm not sure what Dave would say about that one. But you cannot serve God and money. Like I said, there's an opportunity cost with any money that you've got stowed away, any mass amounts of wealth, any luxury items you have, right? Every cruise you go on, every flight you take, it all has an opportunity cost, financial opportunity cost, because there are people, things, organizations that you could be helping with that money who really need it. and they need it more than you do, right? I could sit around and complain about my lifestyle, but some would say that I live like a king. Even though it's in the back bedroom of my mom's house, and I've got some old beater truck, over 224,000 miles on it right now. Who knows how long it's going to last? I got a bike out there that I can ride when the truck finally dies, or I'll have to sell it when I run out of money. Who knows? I'm sure I'll have to sell it eventually. But that's what I got. It's not much. I got a girlfriend. She cares about me. She's helpful. She likes me. So that's nice. Got companionship. But, in America, they'd be like, oh, this guy's a deadbeat. This guy's a scrub. Look at him. He doesn't have anything. But to people in other parts of the world, I'm a king. I've got food in the fridge. I've got water. I've got a computer. I can make my videos. I don't have health care, but if something really bad happens, I could go to the ER and just get some big medical bill that I'm not going to pay anyway. So that's no big deal. Probably have to file bankruptcy eventually. But even though my needs are met, I have shelter. If it rains, I don't get wet. I have food. I have water. I got nice food. I got fruits and vegetables up there. I got all kinds of good food to eat. So I can't complain. I got everything I need to get my job done. So it's all perspective. But I don't think people understand how low the bar is on greed. It's just having things that you don't need. And a lot of people, they're like, well, I worked for it. I deserve this. That's fine that it's fine that you think that. And you can say that you worked for it, so you earned the money. But it's not going to pass God's test of, were you more worried about you and your pleasure-seeking activities, or were you more interested in serving others? Which was it? Was it about you or about serving others? That's a very different thing. Because you can still have your job and you can still make good money. Be well compensated for whatever the job is. Maybe you have a tough job and had to go to school for many years to get it, and you got student loans and stuff like that. So, you owe your money like you work for it. That's true. But it's how do you spend it? Right? Are you in a 800, 1,200 square foot home, the home that you need? 1,600 square foot depends on the family size and all that stuff, whatever. But are you in a home that you need size-wise? Or are you in a home that you want? In some big McMansion that you don't need, with multiple vehicles that you don't need, luxury vehicles you don't even drive sometimes. They just sit in the garage and collect dust, and you just sit out there and you wax them. You're just so proud of them, right? All those things that you own that you don't need but that you want, there's an opportunity cost because you could be using that money to help the least of God's children, ones that are destitute, ones whose ribs are about poking out of their skin, right? They're drinking dirty pond water. Those are people that you could be helping. You might be helping some of them, but it doesn't mean you couldn't be helping more, right? You can always do more. We can all do more. That's for all of us. Oh boy. Sorry. I thought this was going to work, but we're definitely out of time here. So I either need a bigger time clock or, I don't know, flip it back over maybe. But that's it for today. I don't want to go through anymore else. This thing's already drug on too long. Yeah. Golden rule. Okay. Golden rule. We'll do that last one. And then that's it. I'm closing it out. All right. This is, if you can only remember one rule, just remember this one. Oh, except for that part. So whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them. How simple of a concept is that? All right. If you don't want someone to drop a bomb on you, don't drop a bomb on them. Don't want to get stabbed? Don't stab anybody. Don't want to get punched in the face? Don't punch anyone. Don't want to get raped? Don't rape anyone. Right? Treat people how you want to be treated. If you were homeless and you were on the corner and you were struggling, you would want someone to maybe provide mental help for you, right? Maybe provide some medical insurance, maybe provide some food, some nutrition, things like that. You would want help when you're going through that traumatic time in your life. So just treat people how you want to be treated. It's that simple. You can look at all the various virtues and sins and things like that. And those are nice. They help, drive down, make the point on certain issues. But just treat people how you want to be treated. It's really simple. And follow just simple advice, simple guidance. That's all there is to it. Oh, destruction. Okay, this is the last one. Enter by the narrow gate. I think I mentioned before, the gate is way more narrow than you think it is. So enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is easy that leads to destruction. That's true. That's living like this world. And those who enter by it are many, 100%. Like I said, it's not a situation where I've lost one sheep and I need to leave the 99 to go find it. We're in this place. Okay? So I need to go find like 99 sheep. And I've got one sheep that's probably in good shape. When you think of, you'll see it as time goes on, but everything, from clothing and how we operate and personal finances and culture and war and everything, I'm not looking for one sheep. I need to find 99. I need 99 sheep that will come back into the fold. So, and the treasonous root. Like I said, there's other good things there, especially in the New Testament. Old Testament, I'll never read that again. But that's my 2 cents. So I figured I'd get this out on Sunday. It's been a while, so I wanted to get a video out to you. But I'll go ahead and close it out because this one's way too long. So, God loves us. God loves us so much that he decided to send someone here to save us. Because we don't realize it, but someone had to break in here to try to save us. Because we've been in this pit so long, we don't realize how dirty it is. And we don't realize how dirty we are because we're living by standards of this place. On this floor, we're using these standards. But unfortunately, we don't realize that there is a top floor where the standards are much, much higher. And you will much, much rather like to live there. But until then, while we're all here, now that we're all here, we will try to make this place amazing. Because your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven.